Hello and welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, I'm Nerdarchist Dave, and tonight I'm joined by this fine nerd.
And I'm Nerdarchist Ted, and tonight we're waking the oldest, most powerful forces in fantasy, dragons.
Aether Skies is the dark arcana-punk world of floating cities powered by unstable ether, suspended above a cursed monster-infested surface with Cold War paranoia, secret factions, and the return of a vanished city hurling eldritch horrors. Survival depends on wit, will, and navigating the lies told in the clouds. Links to our first ever Aether Skies game, as well as our 5e D&D game, is in the description below.
So when dragons awaken in Aether Skies, they disrupt the delicate balance of power, threatening both city-states and ether-based technology with their ancient reality-warping presence. Their return signals a deeper unraveling, perhaps tied to the lost gods or the secrets buried within the 13th city, forcing factions to either weaponize or worship them.
Dragons are ancient ether-reactive beings whose presence can destabilize struts and magic alike, making them both a catastrophic making them a catastrophic threat and a source of immense power. So we have not really seen or witnessed dragons in Aether Skies yet, but we do know the first age of Zantara, the world of Aether Skies, was your stereotypical fantasy world. We don't go into great detail on the specifics of what it was like before, because we're kind of in like a third age at this point. After everyone's fled the surface world, it's become very much more industrial and arcana-punkish. It is like the second age, and the third age is when these eldritch horrors begin arriving after the city of Haven is destroyed and it returns, right? And that's where we've been playing and adventuring. But that doesn't mean that dragons don't exist or couldn't exist.
All right, so let me ask this question first. When you ran Aether Skies for D&D in a castle, did you use dragons in that campaign at all?
I did not.
You did not. That's something that I feel is a lost opportunity. A dragon fight from atop a skyship could be a lot of fun to play with. Leading up into this topic, I was thinking like, all right, first and foremost, where would I start off? Because it's far easier to build off of a monster that already exists. So I know where would you one of the established dragons that exist in the 5th edition monster, oh, not monster, but in the 5th edition dragons that we have so far.
Okay, so are you asking what dragon would be the first dragon that I would try and import from D&D into this world?
So if you were going to build a dragon for Aether Skies, like what stat block would you start off with to build on top of to make a unique dragon for this world?
I probably wouldn't look at any of the traditional metallic or chromatic dragons. So we probably look at something like a solar dragon or a void dragon, which is not from D&D but Cobalt Brass, something like that. I will say, I guess my earlier statement that dragons have not been in Aether Skies isn't actually accurate.
Okay.
Because Robin's character in our first campaign had Hiss, which was kind of like a shadow dragon that took up residence on her persons, right? Dr. Lucy, she kind of like tamed this corrupted presence and almost wore it like a tattoo. But when Dr. Lucy lost control, Hiss would come out, and then Hiss would grow early on, like maybe the size of a dog, a horse, to eventually the size of a full dragon, where Dark Bunny and Dr. Lucy rode Hiss away into wherever, right? You guys don't even know what happened to them. So there was a dragon, and it very much was not one of your standard typical dragons. It would closest resemble like a shadow dragon or one of the shadow dragon templates.
So the reason I ask is because I was thinking about this one specifically for Aether Skies. Being it is so eldritch horror, my thought pattern was to start off conceptually, just looking at the stat block, not at the lore, but I was looking at the Elder Brain Dragon. It's combining the presence of this incredibly powerful magic-y being into everything that is also dragon. I thought that would be where I would start if I was going to be building to terrify my players.
Yeah, so there's different ways you could go, right? Like there could be slumbering dragons on the surface world, right? Maybe they're active, maybe they're not. It could be that whatever drove the gods away from the world is the same thing that sent the dragons into their slumber. So you could have them awaken, the players discover them on the surface world, and maybe they're the ones that actually are the catalyst for awakening dragons in Zantara. That was definitely one of my thoughts.
I am, as you're well aware, about to run a campaign that is primarily leading characters down to the surface. So it is entirely possible that you guys might stumble into something and awaken some kind of dragon or some kind of thing. So that's something to think about and make me wonder.
So what do you think is another way that dragons could affect the world other than physically being in it?
So some factions, including radical cults or rogue thermancers, seek to bind or bargain with dragons, seeing them as the keys to forbidden knowledge or dominion over rival cities.
And that's definitely a thing I could see happening if a dragon were to awaken. Definitely, Ethermancers are going to definitely be very interested, because dragons are beings of the world. And when I say the world, I mean like they're actually made up of the elements of the world, right? Literally, as well as figuratively. And they're creatures of magic, right? They're always depicted that way. And in Aether Skies, Ether is magic, right? So like Ethermancers are going to be like, oh, what's going on here? This thing is just coursing with magic, and want to do something with it, you know. And that's not even getting into the fact that some of the different factions are going to also want to be involved with them. Knights of the Anti-Ether, I could definitely see them being very St. George-like and being want to be the Dragon Slayers in their nightly role.
You could literally have dragons that absorb ether and are entirely looking to be a catalyst against the magic of the world. And you could have dragons that are all about ether, that are comprised of ether. Both of those things could induce organizations or cults. It could very much split down into subclasses or organizations that are all about that specific dragon, let alone conceptually, to be able to dictate and guide a path for an individual character or story.
Or imagine an Ether Ficer that wants to power their devices with a dragon from that dragon. You know, could you just imagine like the different directions that Tara or Bunny's mind would go in if they encounter this being that is so the Ether is so integral to its makeup, and what they would try and do with it.
You imagine a dragon that has like a pure ether breath weapon and like could spellcasters be like, all right, well, I'm going to avoid the damage by like over channeling and absorb it as opposed to taking it and then see what ramifications that winds up having. I think that could be, from a mechanical perspective, that could be really awesome component to play with.
Yeah, and also like the idea that dragons themselves absorb ether, right? Using it against them might be very difficult, right? It's because they're soaking it up like a battery.
I mean, we technically have already built that kind of component with our Spell Eater Barbarian. You would just have to like ramp that up to dragon standards.
Excellent. Combining barbarians with dragons could possibly go wrong.
Well, I'm talking about a specific use power, but sure, barbarian dragons. I'm here for that too.
Absolutely. So, Awakening of Dragons may be linked to the return of the 13th City, hinting at a deeper conspiracy involving the collapse of the Divine Order and the return of Eldritch forces. So, conceptually, like, this age is the age where maybe dragons do begin returning. Maybe they're in the world already, and depending on how you view dragons, right? Like, in this world, are dragons shapeshifters? Could they possibly be among us? Maybe dragons have always been among us, and actually most of the leaders of that are just shapeshifted dragons.
That is a fun aspect, and I know this is slightly off topic, but like we did a video a while ago about True Sight and how once characters get high enough that they've got access to True Sight and they cast it in town, that's when you mix in, random people, commoners to people in power aren't what you think they are. And you unlock all of these other potential subplots of angels, demons, dragons, and eldritch entities that are there interacting on a regular day-to-day basis. You can do so much fun with it. So to take that concept of putting a dragon who, sure, it might spend 10, 20 years in a human or an elf form, to say that they're not willing to spend 20 years to investigate a specific incident or to learn a specific piece of information. It could be trivial, but for whatever reason, this dragon chose to do it. You can have a lot of fun exploring those kinds of concepts. I would love the idea of dragons having intermingled into mortal politics, how things tick.
I like that idea too, and it's kind of interesting that there are dragons among us, but no, for the most part, no one knows. Maybe other dragons know. And now that we're in this third age, maybe this is the thing that'll start bringing them out, whether by choice or not, because as we have these creatures that are from this Cthulhian dimension, maybe they are able to pierce the guise of the dragons and in more ways than one, not just identify them, but actually force them to take their true forms. Imagine what would happen if the ruler of one of the 13 cities gets exposed as actually being a dragon.
But that leads me to a thought pattern of like, there is so many different ways to view dragons. When you look at D&D, it's freaking right in the name, Dungeons and Dragons. Dragons are not the most powerful thing in D&D, but so you've got the ability to turn the dial of how powerful are these. So we could very well have this axiom of, is this world kind of conceptually dragons versus these eldritch? And you could have it so that the dragons, literally most of them have been put to sleep to create the barrier to keep the eldritch entities out. And as the barrier is weakening, dragons could be stirring from their slumber. All but a few of them have been dormant, lying in their caves in the sky or in the ground, in the mountains, wherever they've been cast off to. Heck, there could literally be a dragon asleep in one of the floating chunks of cities that is in just a deep cave that nobody knows about. They could be anywhere you really wanted them to be. I love this concept of the dragons and these eldritch horrors being opposites. That doesn't necessarily stop them from being at odds with the mortal, but it adds another dynamic of, well, what happens if the players do come against one of these dragons and it tips the odds? Like, they kill the dragon, now there's less resistance on that barrier. Now the eldritch entities can allow more through.
I love that idea that they were put to sleep and they're kind of fueling the seals, because it also leads to other fun questions, right? Like, was it willing on their part? Did they do it voluntarily or was it done to them, right? Because depending is going to have very different outcomes, right?
So,
If you start getting some that are awakening,
sure. So
then
like if the question were to ask to me, I would say some were willing and some weren't. Whether it be an immensely powerful ritual that was done, that blood was gathered or scales were gathered or whatever, some way it was set to being done. Maybe it was a combination of the gods enacting the magic to use against the dragons and the eldritch entities. The gods disappeared, knowing that they were losing their power. The dragons paid the price to protect the mortal. Barrier created, dragons are asleep, gods are gone, but the mortals are protected. There's no vast threat to them now. And then slowly throughout the ages, gods haven't come back, dragons begin to awaken, barrier gets weaker. There's lots of fun potential to play with.
so there were two other thoughts I had. One is what if the reason they can't recreate the flying cities anymore is because the other cores for the flying cities are each a dragon that is literally powering the city and keeping it aloft. And the other is introducing dragons as things from the place where Eldritch things come from. So there, and also you could do a combination of like you could literally do all three of those things probably.
Right.
And then which leads to a very interesting question of Haven, the 13th city, technically fell, returned, was corrupted, got purified. What state is if you're going with dragons or the other cores of the cities, what state is that dragon in right now?
Imagine that dragon probably is in a state that it's in flux. Like perhaps, like sure, it got corrupted, but maybe the corruption of the city was basically funneled down to the dragon. So maybe you've got this dual personality dragon that wants to be good, but at the same time, half of its body has become this eldritch entity that is literally all of the evil energy, all this eldritch energy, instead of it being blasted out and gone, got funneled down to the core, going into this dragon. And now is this unique monstrosity that is, in essence, at war with itself.
Yeah. And like the citizens, even the supposed experts, don't know what's going on with the other cores because it's one of those things. It's worked a long time. We just don't touch it because we don't want it to stop working, and we don't want to accidentally mess it up, right? So they don't
when that
know
stops,
yeah,
it falls.
Well, and also, so that means, well, what happens if one of the dragons stops wanting to be the core, right? Or it has the ability to break free. I mean, I think these are all fun, interesting ideas we can introduce into Aether Skies and play with and experiment. And hey, maybe you're not playing Aether Skies or an arcana-punk world. I still think you can use this as inspiration to say, well, what are different ways I can use dragons in my world? How can they interact? And are they always been there? Or are they being awakened? And I kind of like that idea in the sense that like the players and their characters kind of get to discover what dragons are in your world.
If a dragon rose from the Ether storms tonight, would you flee, fight, or try to forge a pact? Tell us how your character or you would handle the return of these sky-shaking titans. If you dug tonight's chat, hit like, subscribe, ring that notification bell so you never miss when we wake up another world-shaking idea.
Until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.